She's always so kind and helpful in having a meeting here. All I have to do is tell her, can we have a meeting? And she says yes, which is rather nice. Because, you know, we always have a problem where actually that. Listen, now, next month, I must tell you, on the 19th of June, please pen it down, we're going to have an afternoon, a garden party, which will be Ramat Bet HaKerem, and it will be a very, very special afternoon, because it will be in honor of Sarah Stepansky, who we were looking for an opportunity to be able to honor her. And she provided us with a perfect opportunity. She had her birthday, so which was wonderful. And it will be in the afternoon at 4 o'clock. You'll get notification, and we're going to have music, a musical afternoon, which should be lovely. In any case, today I happened to be in the office, or in the EMUNAH office, and I went in to see the treasurer. I said, please tell me, how much have we already raised since January? And she looks through her computer, that's what you do nowadays, and since January, after she took off all the expenses, we did well over 9,000 shekel, which I think is extremely good, considering it's sort of a bit here and a bit there, which will all go, of course, to our institutions. Now I will ask Sarah to introduce our speaker.
It is with great pleasure and anticipation that I introduce Ruth Hirsch this evening. Ruth came on Aliyah in 2002 from Berkeley, California. Ruth has been involved in public health since she was a teenager, which I find quite fascinating. And she worked with the Peace Corps in West Africa. She also worked on the federal level in Washington, D.C. She has been teaching and practicing holistic medicine for over 30 years. She has a master's in social services and public health, and I think that she can do a much better job of introducing herself than I can. Please.
Thank you very much. So I'll just start by saying that I have never been videotaped while I was doing this particular talk, so hopefully
That happens when you go to the
I might ask somebody to hold my hand. But I'm very pleased to be here, and so thank you for asking, and it's great to have you right opposite me. One of my supporters, when I first made Aliyah, and I was ill and struggling every time I'd see Hannah, she was a nice shoulder. So I was invited to come and tell my story, and I'm just hoping it'll be inspirational or something for somebody somewhere. I sat down at some point and thought about what shall I say and how shall I say it, because there's so many angles one can go to with one story, but I'll start with the punchline, which usually draws people in, which is that I only found out that I was Jewish for sure in 2000, 7 years ago. I was told, now I'm going to backtrack from that, okay? Probably I would not have ended up in Peace Corps had I known I was Jewish, and probably a lot of things had I grown up in the kind of communities that, the community that I live in right now, and where I'm imagining most of you grew up, or am I talking to like 100% from birth group?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so
Excuse me, would you mind talking just a little bit louder, please?
I'll do my best, but feel free to come closer.
Yeah.
You can come as close as you like.
Thank you.
Because I don't project so well, and I tend to lose my voice if I speak too loud. So feel free to, you can even sit right next to me. Okay. So I was born in Tripoli, Libya, 53 years ago on Friday. On the English calendar. So thank God I've passed another one. My dad was in the service for 2 years, and that's where I was born. And then we went back to New York. My father was brought up in an Orthodox home in New York City, and my mom was brought up in a conservative home. Her mother had died, my grandmother, whose name was Ruth, was named after, died when my mom was 2. And my mother always said that her mother wasn't Jewish, because for some reason my mother didn't want to be. don't know what she really believes inside, but her story was that her father was Jewish and her mother wasn't. And so I knew that I was 3/4. So I always thought, well, if I'd been in Hitler's Germany, I'm Jewish. But I wasn't brought up Jewish, and I was brought up in an extremely secular home. So we had Christian holidays, not Christian, but we had Xmas tree and lights and all the went with it and Easter baskets, and I didn't even know what a Jewish holiday was. So that's kind of where I came from. My father was a staunch atheist. I remember once asking him about God, and he had a temper tantrum, so we didn't go anywhere with that. And I was a kid that knew that there was, I don't know if I knew there was God, but I knew there was something greater, and I was seeking. Ever since I was really little, I was looking. So I used to go to church with my friends, and I went to many different churches to check out, because I was looking. Nothing felt right to me, except for Christian Science, because I liked that they studied. And it occurred to me, I was asking myself, once I knew I was Jewish, why didn't I ever go to a synagogue? The reason I never went to a synagogue is that my mother didn't say very nice things about Jews. And I hate to say this on camera because
No, don't worry.
this is gross Lashon Hara, but this is what I was raised with, hearing not very nice things. Yeah, in fact, my mother used to make comments about Jewish doctors' wives, of which she was one. So my dad was a doctor. But, and I didn't understand. I was raised with a lot of, I hate to use this word, I don't use this word lightly, and not the way that terror is here, but I was raised in a very painful environment where it wasn't okay to ask questions. So that's what it was. I wish you could stand somewhere else besides right at me.
Okay.
So,
Okay, maybe.
but no, it's okay, it's okay.
Be careful that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The water is gonna spill.
Be careful.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so that's where I came from. Let's see. So how did I find out I was Jewish? First of all, when I was 25 years old, I was on a business trip to the West Coast. I was working at the Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C. for Food and Nutrition Service. I didn't even notice you there. Sorry. All my bygone friends are very quiet. So I was in a business trip, and my father was out in San Francisco. He was telling me that he was questioning how to educate his daughter, who's my half-sister. She died tragically when she was 21. So I said, isn't that what you had with us, that we're also mixed? And he said, no, you're Jewish. And when he said that, I was visiting with my aunt and uncle also for the first time, who lived in Oakland. I had this weird thing happen. I imagine you've all maybe been here for quite some time. I made Aliyah when I was 48 years old, and there's this. Sometimes I feel that I'm still in California when I feel comfortable in a place. I forget that where I am. But when he told me that, it just fit. You know how that is sometimes when somebody tells you something, not necessarily about yourself, but there's just a sense that it fits. And other times somebody might say something and there's a sense of not so much congruence. And it just fit, and it felt really comfortable. And there was some inner understanding that I can't even articulate. And I was telling Dr. Glassman my story. How does one tell a dentist your story? But he's a very good listener, and it was really easy. But I was saying that I would really like to write about this and understand it better. So I'm still the writing. If there's another chapter, I'd be happy to share it with you afterwards. So all I can say is that there was an understanding, and something really felt right. So I went back to DC and took some courses in basic Judaism, but unfortunately they didn't feel right. They were the kind of courses that are very intellectual, they're good for somebody who's a thinker, and I'm not so much. I'm much more of a feeler. a heart center and connect on a heart level and a spiritual level much more than a thinking level. So I went back to my Eastern path that I was on before, which probably shouldn't be mentioned in this part of the city. But I was a yogi and a yoga teacher while I was at Department of Agriculture, and I've done several different paths. A seeker. So I went back to that. And then over the years I ended up went to grad. I didn't end up. I had been in the health field for a long, long time. Since I was a teenager, I was fascinated by it. I worked in a health food store, and then I was in the Peace Corps, setting up maternal and child clinics and teaching nurses well baby exams and prenatal exams and setting up little clinics out in the bush. Then I was in USDA, and then I went to graduate school in California, UC Berkeley, to study public health and social work. While I was there, I just realized it's time for me to give Judaism another try. So that's what I did. As soon as I graduated, I started going back again. And one thing led to another, to another, to another. And I don't know how much of this is interesting to you to hear details, or if there are specific questions people have. I can kind of tell you, to me, it was beshert the word that you use? And it was just, there's another word, that I just felt like I was led from one thing to another. I started out doing Jewish renewal, and it was actually very, I would go to davening every Friday night. That's what they had, and even that was every other week. And at one point in 1997, I heard somebody was reading from, we were doing a Torah study, and one of the women there pointed out that the text in English was different than what the text was in Hebrew. And I was so fascinated that I never thought that I could ever read the stuff. So I went off and started taking a biblical Judaism. This is in Berkeley, California. So I started taking that class. And there was a woman in that class who died recently, a very, very special woman, who invited me to her shul. She said, I think you'd like it. We have Torah study every Shabbat morning. And that was very exciting. So I brought myself there, and then right about that time, like within a week or two, my father passed away. And I wanted to say Kiddush. I didn't know that you're supposed to say Kaddish. I didn't know you're supposed to say it every day. I thought it was once a week, because I didn't know that there was davening every day. So, and my shul was every other week. So I graduated to the Reform shul where they did the Torah study, so I could go every week. And then, I think it was only about 3 or 4 months later, that was in September, late August 1998. In January 1999, I saw an ad in the Jewish Bulletin of Northern California for a new study center that was opening near my home. They were having an open house. So I thought, well, that sounds interesting. I really want to learn. And I do want to learn, and I love learning. It's just, as maybe some of you know, we need to find the kind of learning that speaks to us, that unfortunately not every kind of shares something that we can learn from. And I'm a teacher, so I'm also fascinated by learning and what helps people learn and all that. So at any rate, I went to this study center opening, which was packed, and it was a whole population I had never seen before. And I'd lived in that town for a long time. I lived there 18 years when I made Aliyah. So by then, probably 13 years I lived there. It was full of Chabadniks and assorted other Berkeleyites. It was a rainy Sunday in January. It was cold and wet and damp and crowded. And I understood nothing, but I liked the atmosphere. So, and probably, I don't know that anything would have come with it of this, or that I ever would have gone back, because I didn't understand any of the talks. They had different teachers come up and give little bits of talks. So I left. But when I was, can you hear me okay back there?
Yeah.
So when I was right in front of my apartment, I met one of the women who was there, and she said, "Oh, do you live around here?" And I said, "Right there." "Do you live around here?" And she said, "Right there." And she said, "Are you observant?" And I said, "Yes," because I thought I was, because I did Shabbat, what I thought was Shabbat, and I thought that's what it meant to be observant. I was actually a very lonely camper on Shabbat afternoon, because all my Reform and Renewal friends would go off to whatever they did, and I would be home. And this woman was half my age. She's still here, not here, she's in St. Louis, having babies. Hashem. So she invited, we finally ascertained that I wasn't the kind of observant that she had in mind. And she invited me to Shabbos lunch the following week, and came and got me to make sure that I got there. And a few weeks later, she invited me to a Shabbos dinner, got me there. When I saw that white tablecloth with the candles on it, and just felt what it felt like. The Shabbos lunch was 22-year-olds, so it was a little hard to relate to that as something that I wanted in my life. But sitting around the Shabbos table of people that were a range of age, I just loved it, and I knew that's what I wanted. So I decided then and there to be observant, and it's kind of my story. Except that I still didn't know whether I was Jewish, because my mother still said, "You're not Jewish." And I don't think, she would give lots of reasons. So that was January '99, and then we go around to, I taught my last, I had a workshop scheduled, I was teaching on Saturdays, so I taught one on Shabbat in March, and that felt so not right, especially when I went to park my car, and I could hear the Zmiros coming from the window of the 25-year-olds. And so that was the last class. And then that summer, one of the people in the community had a little baby, and the couple were both doctors. And at one point, I had gone there for Shabbos lunch, and the baby was crying, and I said, let me just hold her for a minute. And she stopped crying right away. So that summer, there was a very sad thing. There was a couple visiting from the East Coast. They came to adopt a baby, but while they were in California, she had a relapse of ovarian cancer, was very sick. And at the morning minyan, her husband announced that what she really wants is a massage. And I'm not a massage therapist. I did have a short stint as a massage therapist, but this man heard the announcement and thought of me, and so he bought a thing. He kind of gave me as a gift to go to the hospital, and it was a very powerful experience for me, and it was very helpful for her, thank God. And it was what ended up happening there. They were Chabad, and she unfortunately got sicker and sicker and sicker. When her husband saw what I was doing with her, he invited me to be there as much as possible. And I always find when I can, I'm imagining this is a whole room full of moms. I haven't had the blessing of even being married, let alone being a mom, but when I can do something to help somebody, and to help people connect with themselves and help people connect with Hashem, that makes me very happy. So I was doing what I love to do, and there are all these, excuse my language, really, you can tell I live on the other side of town, all these black hats showing up from all over the world. And it was very, very powerful. Her family was kind of coming in. Her father's a rabbi, and the whole family came in, and they were just coming, and they included me and everything, and I was kind of the facilitator, I don't know what it was, but I was there up until about an hour before she passed away, and over the period of a week. And during that time, somehow I felt like I became part of some community. I don't know what community, but I'm asking myself, why am I telling you this story? It's not for recognition of me, but it was when I was thinking about speaking to you, I asked myself, what feels like pivotal times in my development, and something about that was very, very special. And I still don't know exactly what it was, but it was special. So that was July. Oh, and then in December, the husband came back to Berkeley to give some shiurim as gratitude to the community for all the support that they brought food, and it was amazing all the things that they did. And so I went to one shiur because I was, for my gratitude for being allowed to be part of this. And but I have cold hands, so I wear mittens. In Berkeley, I wore mittens all year round almost, but I forgot one of my mittens because it was warm by the time I left. So I went back the next morning, it was Friday morning, to claim my mittens. And I had written down some notes and some questions that I had about the shiur. So I asked Rebbetzin Jody, the woman of the white tablecloth with the candlesticks on it, if she could answer some of my questions. And we sat there, and which is very rare because she rarely sits still, but she answered my questions. And after about a half an hour, she looked at me and she said, you should go to Israel. And I sat there and just started crying. Because I had heard of these young people, young couples or single people that would pick up and go to Israel for 2 months or 3 months or a year to learn. And I couldn't do that because here I am, a 40-something that's barely making it with my business and had virtually no support. No support from family, or how could I do something like this? So it never seemed like a possibility. She said that, and I started crying, and then she started crying. And I asked her why she was crying, and she said it just feels so right. And I realized it also felt so right. And it was one of those, sometimes Hashem knocks us over the head in different ways. This was one of those loving ways that I got knocked over the head, because I realized I'm taking money out of my savings just to pay my rent. So why not take money out of my savings and go to Israel? It was not a very well thought out kind of thing, because I thought about paying for the ticket. And I did. This young couple, this 25-something couple that had me to my first Shabbat lunch, they were in Israel at the time, and they had a spare room that they rented to me for $150, which was that's what they were paying for this place, which was sort of about what it was worth, but it was worth a lot more to me to have a place to come to, because I wouldn't have come without that. So, there's something else I was going to say about that. So, decision was made. This was, by the way, December 24th, 1999. Decision was made, I'm going to Israel. February 7th, off I went to Israel. That was my first trip. But before that, one of the leading families of the community, my friend Tamar, said to me, Ruth, you need to find out what you are before you go. Her feeling was, she's married to a Kohen, and her fear was that I was going to get off the plane and right away meet somebody. As you all know, it hasn't happened yet, but the time hasn't been right yet. So she said, you need to find out, and I would meet someone and I wouldn't know what I am. Like, I wouldn't know if I'm Jewish or not, or blah, blah, blah. So I started the process. I asked her for advice about how to find out what I am, and she said, call Rabbi Yolis, who is our descendant of the Baal Shem Tov Rebbe from Brooklyn, who is an advisor to this Beit Midrash in Berkeley. So I called up Rabbi Yolis and asked him what to do, and he said, see Rabbi Finkelman, who was the rabbi at the Orthodox shul in Berkeley. He knows all about this stuff. I told my story to Rabbi Finkelman, very abbreviated, and he asked me some questions, and from those questions he said, 99% sure you're Jewish. Well, I didn't get it because I believed my mother. My mother said she didn't know, but my mother had a Hebrew name. My mother's Chaya Sarah. I'm named after my grandmother. My grandmother is in a Jewish cemetery. My mother told me that my grandparents were married at a, City Hall. No, she said they were married at City Hall, and that they didn't, and that she didn't have a ketubah, didn't know what it was. And so at any rate, Rabbi Finkelman said, you need to, I don't know if he told me how to do this, but my grandmother, Ruth, was born in New York City. She was born, married, and died in New York internet and all the stuff that we have right now, I called up records in New York City. Having social work training makes some of this stuff easier. And found out that all I needed to do was send $10 for each document, and they would see what they could find and send it to me. And so off I went to Israel. I did that homework and I went to Israel. I learned at Sha'arim part-time. I had amazing professional success while I was here. I think the third day I was here, someone asked me if I would do a session. It was somebody who had been in a lot of pain. Her husband was a doctor, acupuncture. She asked me if I would work on her back. One session later, she was out of pain, so it was that was gratifying for me. And then someone else asked me if I would teach a class. So if you get together a group, I'll teach a class. She got together a group of 7 women in Harnof that are still using the method that I taught them. They're still practicing with each other. And I ran across one of them the other day up north at a conference, and she said, "We're still focusing every week." So I worked and I earned money, so I was able to pay for the rent that I hadn't thought about paying for, and everything. I fell in love with Israel. I fell in love with Jerusalem. That was that. And then I went back home. I got back home. I was here for 9 weeks or 10 weeks. I got back 1 week before Pesach. And my favorite teacher was, I was trying to think of his name. I can't think of his name. It's terrible. I'll draw to a close pretty soon. He thought it was really important to teach me how to kosher my kitchen for Pesach. And I said, "You don't need to teach it. My kitchen's not kosher anyway." And but he really wanted me to get it. He was very patient with me and taught me the whole thing. And I had actually did not have the intention to go home and kosher my kitchen. But I got home, and I've been in this holy city and this holy everything, so I koshered my kitchen. So from that it was, and that was great because it was nice to have a kosher kitchen for Pesach, and then it was kosher from then on. And then after Passover and all that flurry of getting back and koshering my kitchen, Pesach, my first observant Pesach, I opened the mail, and I didn't quite get it. It took me a little while looking at it, and then I realized, oh, they were married in a shul in New York City. And then, sometimes this stuff, you would think that you would pick it out right away, but sometimes you just have to stay with it a while until the thing comes. Then I got that Ruth's mom was Violet Bergdorf, but she was born Violet Cohen. And so she was the daughter of, this is horrible, usually I know, Jacob Cohen and Henrietta Liebknecht, who were from Holland. And my mother was so sure all her relatives were German. And she has this whole line that were from Holland and England. And it was very clear. I don't know how the rabbi knew, but he said it's for sure that they're religious. It's an interesting thing, just an aside, this is not about me being Jewish, but I put a note on Jewish genealogy about 1.5 years ago that I was looking for Liebknechts, because I couldn't find any Liebknechts in the census in the US. The little bit of looking I did until it was time to get back to work. So I had a letter that came, it's about a few weeks after Rosh Hashanah, I got a letter. It was the week of Parshas Toldot. I thought, what a great time. I got this email from somebody in England whose husband is a descendant of the Liebknechts. And she sent me all this information about the Liebknechts, which was really exciting to me. And unfortunately, she wrote to me after Rosh Hashanah, and the last backup I had done on my computer was in September. The latest knock on my head I had from Hashem was that my place was burglarized and the computer was stolen without the backup. So I don't, and I've written to as many people as I could think of, and I've looked on the internet trying to find this lovely lady that was corresponding with me from England, who is a relative of Liebknecht, and I haven't been able to get her. I just figure I'm not meant to be in contact with her right now. but the interesting thing is that Jacob's, I don't remember, I just remember looking at this thing that a lot of the lines married out, but his didn't until we got to me. Actually, my mother married a Jew, but then my parents divorced and they both married Catholics, and both of my brothers married Catholics. And I'm the one in the family that's here, hoping to marry, if I marry, it's going to be a Jew. So that's how I found out that I'm Jewish. I guess at this point, I was asked to speak for about 30 to 40 minutes, is that what you said?
What do you do for a living there here?
I am what's called a focusing trainer.
What does that mean?
So I'll tell you, it's, I think of myself as a coach. I teach people how to connect inside. And what I really believe is that Hashem speaks to us in many ways. And we have a great deal of wisdom inside of ourselves that I think little children know how to access, but most of us, well, I can't say us, because I don't know how all of you were raised, but I know how I was raised. We were taught to not listen to the inner voice, or that we were taught not to listen to that wisdom and to take on what society told us or what our parents told us. And what I do is I teach this method to therapists and to lay people, and I'm also a counselor therapist, so I work with people. Right now my practice is primarily in the US. It just happens that way. It's good because I'm paying my rent now, thank God. But I'm teaching classes in the US on the phone.
You commute?
No, I don't have a great energy level, I teach on the phone. So last night I did a 3-hour class because it was Sunday morning for them. But I have students on the West Coast, and the East Coast, and the Midwest, Canada. And I do have a few people that I see here. I also still do touch work. I'm trained in a lot of different kinds of somatic therapies. So I was trained in massage, I was trained in acupressure, which is like acupuncture. It's the same theories of Chinese medicine, but use of the hands. So I do that, and I'm trained a little bit in polarity, cranial sacral therapy, reflexology, aromatherapy. So in the past I've done all of these different things. I just recently went to a conference that was my field, of the International Focusing Conference, which was held in Israel for the first time ever. It was up north. And I did what used to be my specialty. I guess it is my specialty in that I'm virtually the only person really doing it in the world, of integrating touch with the going inside. It's kind of a 3-ring circus, I call it, because at the same time that I'm doing the touch work and also feeling connected with the energy of the person, I'm helping them to go inside of themselves. So I love it because it's very concentrated and it's different things at different times. So I do that, I love it, I love to teach it, and I have not been teaching it here. I'm thinking maybe this summer I'll do some of that.
How have the changes in your life affected your work? I know it's a difficult question.
That's a great question. It's a great question because my work has just, it's gotten so much richer and so much deeper, especially since I started coming here. So when I told you the first time I came here, I taught. The second time I came here, I taught a little bit, but I started working also with my clients in California, who I've been working with the table. But what was fascinating was that I was working with them on the phone, so they didn't have my hands on them. They just had the phone, and they were growing so much more quickly. And it was so much easier for me also. And I was able just to go deep with them. So
Can you be more specific about how you
yeah, that's
use
it.
it?
So more specific
About how you use this newfound whatever.
how I use it. I think it's that it's a little bit what's the word, esoteric to speak about. But as a healer, we bring ourselves to our work, and the more that we are integrated with ourselves, even if we don't talk about that with another person, but the more we have a whole person to be with the person.
So it's more in terms of how you've developed rather than using specific knowledge or information.
Well, I do use things, but it's more me. In people right now, I always give a taste of Jerusalem to my students. My students are not all, I have a few students who came to me, because they saw my name on the internet and they wanted somebody Jewish. But they don't work on Jewish issues. And it's interesting. I'm a new private client that's that way. I love working with them because I just hope maybe they will inspire. Yeah. Since I sit in my apartment, you know, and there's always something there, either there are sirens, or there is the siren. Like I happened to be teaching on the day that was Yom HaZikaron, or there's something, fireworks, and I just say, oh, well, right now we're celebrating the holiday of, and this is what we do.
Are you giving us some information?
Yeah, yeah. I also, last year I did a calendar series. Probably didn't know about that. I haven't been coming up here so much. I did a calendar series when I first got my US phone. And now I've graduated to teaching courses, so I'm not doing that series. What I did was each month I did something on the Jewish calendar. And what I did, it was great fun for me because I did a lot of research about each month. So and I started with Elul. So I looked on the internet for all kinds of information about Elul, mystical as well as practical. And what do people do? How it's celebrated? What are the important dates? Who died? Who's all this stuff. So I got a lot of information and I put it down, made it small. And then what I did was I developed exercises to help people connect with the themes. So what does it mean to you to forgive? Or that's a really trite something, but more than that. So, and then I would do a guiding meditation. So all these people are on the phone, Kluslaritz, and I'm guiding them inside themselves and having them ask the question and notice what comes and then acknowledge that. And then we'd come back out again to the shared space of the group living room on the phone, and people would share for a few minutes what happened for them. It was very powerful, very beautiful. So that was nice. The interesting thing about that was that I had, at the end, I was having more and more Catholic people and less Jews. And I was intending it for Jewish awareness. I had a lot of nuns. One of those nuns actually came to visit me. She was about 60, it was her first trip to Israel. She was here, I said, come. So she came and had tea. She was lovely. And I loved how interested she was. Chaval, that's over. But everybody at their own rate.
Do you work with emotional or physical problems?
Everything. I don't work with serious, so people need to be functional. So I work more, I'm a little embarrassed to say this, the personal growth field, but people come that have problems with depression, problems with anger management, problems with that kind of stuff, or they come with physical problems, or they come with spiritual things, or they're having trouble making a decision, and they're weighing all the, this is how I got into this work in the first place.
If you're a Libra, you have trouble making.
Excuse me?
If you're a Libra, you have trouble making decisions. So
yeah, I'm not a Libra. I'm a Gemini. This is my birthday 2 days ago. Actually, in the Ivrit calendar, I'm a Taurus because I'm an ER. But not necessarily. See, the work that I do, it helps people connect with what their truth is. So we have trouble making decisions because our mind can say, well, here are the pros and cons for this, and here are the pros and cons for that, but that's just using our mind. And Hashem gave us a whole guf and nefesh and lev and everything, so when we can really listen to all of it, then the answer becomes clear. I've worked with cancer patients who were given options about therapies, which is really hard because they're your life and death, and do I do this one, do I do this one, and this one has this side effects and this one has that side effects, but inside their being there's a knowing, and when people make a decision based listening to that knowing, then they don't have the afterwards wondering whether they made the right decision.
And pain management, do you work with that?
I do some of that.
The same kinds of therapy will help pain as will help depression and emotional decision making and all that kind of stuff?
They say, my understanding is a lot of pain management is helping with the stress of the pain and helping with acceptance of being with. And I'm not against pills for anything. So there's definitely a place for Western medicine. And it goes so far, just like there's a place for cognitive understanding and for inner work, and it goes so far. So altogether, in complementary medicine is what I support, and I do one part of it.
Judy?
Yeah, do you work at all with doctors? I mean, is there any connection with medical personnel?
Yeah, I don't at this point. That was something I really wanted after my experience in '99. That's what I wanted. I just wanted, and I've worked with other people in hospitals. I've worked with, some women have hired me to come in before or after a surgical procedure. And I love doing that. So I wanted to do that, but I don't get anything. I put an ad in the Jerusalem Post, which some of you, anybody who looks at the Jerusalem Post may have seen my medical support ad. I got one client from that who was visiting from the States and had just had a miscarriage. And then she actually ended up becoming my student when she went back to America, so she's still my student. But it wasn't happening, so I've always figured if something doesn't happen with a little bit of effort, then maybe I'm meant to do something else. So right now I'm really feeling like teaching is my thing. I'm very happy to do that. So if you know somebody that you think that, if there's a possibility of helping somebody, I'm happy to explore it. Usually what I do with people is I talk to them first. I'll talk to them on the phone just to get a sense of whether we're compatible and whether how I work is something that they're interested in. If it feels like they want to try one session, then they do. And there's never an obligation. I didn't come here to do PR.
As you mentioned before, you have been doing things, setting up a prenatal or clinics and things like that. Here it has become such a trend, having supportive or all kinds of ladies, doula, whatever.
She's a midwife, by the way.
That connects with people that exactly during childbirth, that you have it more spiritual, more knowing yourself, you're knowing your body, knowing what comes, what goes, and you say there's a big population waiting for the right people, giving it more than should we say, having another child and soon go home. Having it perhaps the only experience they might ever have, because some do it very late, marrying late in general, or other things. Have you ever thought of going in that direction? Because there's a very big field.
Again, I love babies, and I delivered some babies when I was in Africa. Totally not, it wasn't intended. I went into my little thatched hut one day that had all of a scale and some posters on it. And there's a woman in the middle of the floor, and I thought, oh my goodness.
I would run.
What do you do? What do you do? You do what you do. They named that little girl after me.
But I want to ask something else in a different direction. Has it happened that you have, should we say, opened people up to the thoughts of their inner self, or whatever you should call it, and they don't like it? They run away or get angry, get scared of what they suddenly see or feel, or have not been prepared to be exposed to, though it's their own, but it's because not everybody is prepared to be.
So this is part of my work, actually. But and I'll say that the answer to that is no. I've had the experience of people that were scared to go inside because they were scared of what they would find. Part of the technique that I do is called focusing. You can just Google it. You can Google my name and you'll find focus and stuff about focusing. The whole focusing process was developed by a therapist, a Jewish therapist, who was a philosopher and a psychologist, who wondered why some people get better in therapy and some people don't. And what he did was he taped thousands of hours of therapy sessions and then analyzed them to see, is it the modality, is it the type of therapy, is it something the therapist is doing, something the client is doing. And what he found was that basically the clients who were feeling inside in their bodies what was coming to them in their minds, those are the people that were getting better. And so I'm saying this just as background. And then he developed a process. And then my teacher actually took it way further. My teacher is a PhD linguist, so I was very lucky to work with her, and she's now a colleague. We're training together. It's why I have so many this week I have 5 trainings going on, one of which is with her. And that's exciting for me, but at any rate, so one of the things that I do is I teach people how to be compassionate to whatever comes. The philosophy that underlies it is that whatever is inside of us is there for a reason and deserves compassion. And once it's given compassion, that ugly stuff isn't so ugly. The stuff that we might think is ugly or that our judging mind might think is, really isn't. It usually is scared or it's hurt or it's who knows what. But by being with it, then it can tell us what's going on, and then all of a sudden this grip that it has on us, mostly not conscious grip, doesn't need to be there, it just lets go. So people experience incredible freedom from whatever they find. And somebody could sit there and cry for a whole hour and use half a box of Kleenex, and they leave with this huge smile on their face saying, "Thank you so much." And they look, if they were to look in the mirror, their face just is relaxed. That's why I do it. I love it.
Excuse me, did everybody get a raffle ticket? Sarah, if you wouldn't mind thanking Ruth, and then we'll ask you if you wouldn't mind drawing our raffle ticket, all right?
Ruth, I want to thank you from all of us for a most fascinating story.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much. Everybody's stuck.
It has surely been our pleasure.
Thank you. I've enjoyed myself also. I will also say, before I draw this, if anybody has any feedback for me or comments or questions, you're welcome to maybe a little bit after this, but mostly since we need to clear out of here, you can contact me afterwards. Okay. So I'm always happy to be contacted. Okay, this one. Da-da-da-da-da-da. 92.
Who's that? Who's 92?
Oh,
There you go. Lorna.
93.
Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you. Thank you for giving us your time. Brought up in a community, you know, where everybody around was religious, went to Jewish school or whatever. We took it all for granted, you know? That's how it was. I didn't know anybody around here who didn't eat kosher. You know, there wasn't such a thing. So I think that we were very lucky because we made it all very easy.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I still grapple with all the traits that I eat, not even
Well,
knowing
it wasn't,
I didn't know, it
you
doesn't,
know.
it doesn't matter. It's, there's a lot that I grapple with. But on the other hand, someone said to me, and I know you want to go and I want to get the host back her home, I was asked to speak at a shul in West Hempstead, in Shalashidis.
West Hempstead?
Yeah, my, is that in West Hempstead? Is that what it's called?
In
No, it's
London.
not London, it's in New York.
Oh, I knew what you meant. It's only West Hempstead.
So I walked in and I was surprised it was all FFBs. And I thought, what am I have to say to them? The president of the shul afterwards said to me, he said to me, you're so enthusiastic, you're so connected with it, we've lost that.
But that's
It
quite
was
true.
really interesting to me
That's
to hear
quite
that.
true. Because I found, I was talking to someone, to a group of girls who weren't religious. I studied in Ishmael. And they were saying, oh, isn't that wonderful, it's going to be Pesach. I thought to myself, oh my God, it's going to be Pesach. But they seemed so excited, I kept my mouth shut, obviously, you know.
Very smart, Kiki.
Well,
First time in your life.
Yeah, not so easy either. Not so easy. But it's true,
So
you know,
maybe sometime
I can't get very excited about it. I can't.
And I can appreciate that now.
Yes.
I actually said to Yehudas when I was with them for Pesach, when I was at my Pesach in Beit Pagan, I was walking through, I said, this used to be my favorite holiday in the past. past tense. And I thank God that now after being religious for all of almost 7 years, I'm going backwards and really connecting
That's
with,
very good. I mean,
and
that's
it's
how it should
deciding
be.
that I'm not gonna let what's beautiful get lost because of
Did you know Rabbi Lipner in San Francisco? Rabbi Lipner, the Hebrew.
Ruth, can I ask a question? Like colleagues that you had before and friends, when they found out that you were Jewish, were they supportive? Or did you
well,
lose?
Well, most people said, how could you not have known you were Jewish? And one person said to me, one goy said to me, with a name like yours and a face like yours, how could you not know? The people that ceased to become so supportive after I made Aliyah, and that was the religious people. My non-religious friends have become, Jewish friends have become closer and closer since I've been here, and we talk on the phone. I have a Berkeley phone line, so they call me, but the religious ones I never hear from. So that was really hard for me at the beginning. And I got used to it, and people explained that probably don't want to go there.
Guilt
You
feeling.
become
Guilt
a threat
But
to
it's
them.
very
That's it,
bizarre.
guilt
Yes.
feeling.
Because I thought of them
Would be
as-
the opposite.
Well, I also
Yes,
thought of
yes.
them as
It's
as
a different-
It's hurting, they are hurt. Yeah, their attitude.
Because that's
You
what they
allow
should
yourself
be
to do
doing.
a thing, or you could,
Yes.
that they have
They
done,
should
and
do.
they feel bad,
I agree.
and that's
Guilt.
why they feel that, oh,
mostly because I'm Western. It's nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Anyone that wants a drink? I'm not a hostess, but please help yourself.